Redditors who were dating someone that went from "I think I want to marry this person" to "I think I need a restraining order." What happened? I married her anyway. How's that working out for ya? He owned a house, had 2 jobs, lived in my apartment, didn't pay for anything, didn't help me out, he was always resting for work. I had a full-time job, and was paying the bills. But the straw that broke the camel's back was when, after buying me a puppy I wasn't really keen on getting since I already had one, he refused to even take them out to go potty. I had to teach a 50-year-old man how to walk a dog. And he refused to even buy a bag of dog food. I was like, that's it. I'm keeping the 4-legged dogs, and getting rid of the 2-legged one. He was a postman and a cook in a casino. I realize he had bills. But I was barely scraping by before he moved in without my permission. I couldn't afford him and another puppy. I am happy to say, I still have the puppies. They are almost 7 and 7.5 and the most amazing dogs I could hope for. But I was happy when I moved and he no longer knows where I live unless he uses the PO to find out. That would be creepy. So keep in mind, this was in the late 90s. There was chemistry, and lots of long talks on the internet and on the phone, and we were getting along pretty well. And, one day, I don't recall how it came about to the topic, but, it came about to the topic of Coca-Cola. And she began to spin harder and faster and more eccentrically than a toy top on a whirligig teacups ride, about how Coca-Cola was _Jewish_. The next 20 minutes were filled with her regurgitating the absolute worst anti-Semitic garbage that could have been sourced out of any hate organization's manifesto. The kind of stuff that gets vomited on 4chan and 8chan today. I listened to her just spew it all out, and then thanked her for her viewpoint, and excused myself and left. And then my dog ate my cell phone. The last I heard about her, she had moved to the Pacific Northwest, I guess to be with other white supremacists. I just feel bad for her children who had to grow up with that culture. I hope they're healing. /real/white people drink Mountain Dew, duh. I was dating a guy who was very sweet in the beginning. After about 6 months he got possessive. He didn't trust me. An example of this was one night I told him I was meeting a friend I used to work with at a bar a block away. We lived in a safe area and it was a short walk. Her name sounded like it could be male or female, but I assured him she was a she. He showed up at the bar while we were there and it made him look very insecure. He began tracking my phone's GPS. I found out when I stopped at a relative's house after work on my way home and he freaked out and called my mom. She actually knew that was where I was and he had a hard time believing I wasn't cheating. The last straw was my first week at a new job. I worked nights and had my phone. I got this long-winded email regarding an innocent comment on a Facebook selfie of me. There were screenshots of it and a huge manifesto about why my buddies online all wanted to take me away from him. After I broke up with him, I got emails for months swinging between apologies and telling me I was the abuser. I got emails telling me he was being drugged. It was insane. Yikes. She was unreasonably hot. I'm good looking but she was just stupid beautiful. She found out my ex's name somehow, without my knowledge, found her Facebook and started sending her threatening messages. I have no idea why. She then deleted every female number from my phone. All my relatives except my mother and aunts that were listed as such. Her hotness made me continue with her for another 3 weeks after this. She said that she has issues but being pretty means that most guys put up with it. And I need to just deal with it. Ending it with her felt more like trying to explain complex mathematics to a donkey. She wouldn't accept it for ages. I respected her self-awareness about psycho she was though, TBH. Some girls like that know fully well they're insane and they wear it like a quirky badge of honor. The piss me off and I become your worst nightmare girls are the ones you want to avoid. Classic: I got home from overseas and found drugs, not my clothes, shitload of money missing and left her. 2 years later she's married, but still constantly texting and emailing me, new number and emails when I block the old, etc. Finally got enough proof that she was keying my truck, breaking pots etc. at my place to get an EPO on her. Got a full PO and it's finally quiet. Apparently, her brother-in-law told me later, she would cry to him and her twin sister every night convinced I didn't love her. And she thought the best way to deal with that was to sperm jack me and she got pregnant. Or at least she said she did. How did that work out? I started dating this amazing girl, but she was just getting out of an abusive marriage, and I was her first female partner. She started showing up at my work with flowers and coffee, which was sweet. But I had never told her where my office was. Then, she started showing up at my house at all hours, and would get upset when I needed to sleep. I worked graves. She then wanted me to meet her daughters, which I wasn't comfortable with, because we were in the first stages of the relationship. I decided to break it off. She was too needy, which was understandable coming from someone who had just left an abusive relationship and discovered their sexuality, but I wasn't the person that could guide her. She decided that I was just afraid of love, and started leaving books of poetry on my porch, and leaving long letters in my mailbox. I finally had to call law enforcement after I came home to her in my bed. She had taken a ladder to my second-story room window, I lived with roommates, and broken in. I found her naked in my bed, covered in blood from cutting herself. She proceeded to tell me that I was the only thing keeping her alive. I cut off all contact, but I truly hope that she has gotten some help and is doing well. She was a wonderful woman, but so broken. I dated this girl from halfway across the globe. I'm in Northwest Europe, she was from Southeast Asia, and we actually met up here, had a great time. She got along great with my parents, and plans were made for me to head down there the next year. Somewhere along the line though we got into more and more online arguments, combined with me feeling heavily inadequate and some other shit, and around February of the following year I broke things off. I felt bad, but I could have never continued that relationship. And then in August of that year me, my sister and my mother are walking downtown and we suddenly see her. She flew over in hopes of mending the relationship, even went out to see my father, though he wasn't home, and all that. Yeah. Damn, reading these makes me feel so grateful to be married to my husband. He's not perfect but I dodged a bullet, lol. Not dating, but losing my patience with a friendship and business partner. He is having a rough time in life and I've listened to him ramble on about getting honest with himself and his ego, Zen, philosophical things. We have a huge new project and we have a big meeting tomorrow to strategize and plan for. We're talking business and he all of a sudden wants to talk about Zen and asks me if I'm a truth seeker and tells me I have to dissolve my ego. I try to satisfy him by giving a 10 seconds answer about how I've found my path in life. But no, he wants me to tell him how I've dissolved my ego. I'm just about done with him, he's lost his mind. We have shit to do and he wants to talk philosophy. I'm about to dump our partnership and friendship. Sucks, he's losing his mind and he's not doing any work, but keeps going on about how we have to work hard. Over the last 3 days he's done nothing but binge watch TV, according to himself. And yes, I've told him I don't want to talk about this stuff anymore and he keeps insisting on it. He's been listening to Jocko Willink, I think it's a cult. I listened to the podcast the other day and my friend sounds like the same kind of insufferable cunt. How long has he been your business partner? Sounds like you need to have a come to Jesus talk with him, but no Jesus. Lay it out real clear in black and white. I would anyway, can't deal with too much crazy shit. I was 15 when I started dating this 20-year-old guy. I really loved this guy and I would have done everything for him. Everything went great until 4 months into the relationship. He started to get abusive, mentally and physically, very quickly after that. I wasn't allowed to see my friends anymore, etc. In the beginning I thought I was the problem, but after a while I realized he was the problem, so I left him after that. Few months after that I went back at his house. He lived alone, with a mutual guy friend who was also invited. We used to have small house parties, to have a drink at his place, and everything seemed normal. So after a while our friend went to sleep in the guest bedroom that was next to my ex's bedroom, and we were still talking downstairs, and he started to get violent again and he raped me. Our friend heard everything that happened that evening, and the morning after my ex, pretended that it never happened, so I left immediately. A few months later he's calling and texting me on every social media account that he could find of me. And when finally I called him out on what he did, he told me that I was crazy. This happened 3 years ago, and I still can't let a boy close to me because of what that son of a bitch did to me. So to everyone that has been through a similar situation, I hope you're doing well now. I hope you are getting the support you need now. It was not your fault. Less than 3. We were lying in bed and she said the angels see us. They're very happy. Exit stage left. He pushed a little girl in a store because she tried to pet his emotional support dog. Instead of just picking up the dog, he put hands on her. There's a lot more, but that sticks out the most. I recently found out he was arrested again. Started dating in high school, had some ups and downs, but at the time I just chalked it up to us being immature. My last 2 years of college really proved he just had serious issues. When I moved out of state for good, it's like a switch flipped and he got extremely possessive and controlling. Wanted all my friends' numbers, gave me a schedule of when we need to be in communication, and if I missed any he was blowing my phone up with threats of suicide. Finally got the restraining order when he showed up to my friend's apartment looking for me, threatening to call the police because I still had a pair of his shoes that I didn't even have. That's so crazy. Something very similar happened to me, except I was the other side of it. Looking back, it's insane to me how I could think the things I was doing were right, but I did them anyways. I'm not sure what happened in that relationship to bring that out of me, but I developed some serious hang-ups that I'm still working to get over today. That's awesome that you were able to self-reflect, see your mistakes, and take ownership of addressing those issues. If everyone thought this way, the world would be a much better place. Thanks for being a better version of yourself. The worst version I have of this was a guy that I had been dating, who rammed my truck with a moving van, repeatedly, at an immigration checkpoint in New Mexico, well after dark. He thought it was funny. He'd been behaving badly, but I just thought it was the stress of the move. The aggravated assault by U-Haul is when I decided to break up with him. He stalked me for years after that, harassing me at work, which led to me getting fired. I switched from law firms to legal software, and that seemed to make it harder to find me. His stalking ended in blowing up a brick-and-mortar mailbox with plastic explosives. I think he laid low after that, because the FBI was looking for him. He eventually moved back to California, years later. An ex-girlfriend of his contacted me about 7 years later when she was settling his estate. She wanted to make sure there weren't any children. Went on a date with this really hot dude. Everything was great. Until he started trying to guess the color/design of my panties. Did he guess right? Started out romantic and fun. Looking back, I was a stupid 15-year-old who thought he, 19, just saw me for how mature and sophisticated I was. Wrong. He was a horrible creep, emotionally and physically abusive, and I was stupid and naive. The last straw was when he asked me to come over with my friends, and when we did, he was doing naked stretching and refused to put clothes on. I was so embarrassed. My friends left and he had some dinner made for me, which we ate, and some alcohol that he had spiked with crushed up oxys. Disclaimer, I was in no way into pills, all I did was smoke weed and occasionally drink. I'll spare you the horrible details, but it was not a good night. I dumped him a few days later after trying to process what had happened. Took me years to finally understand, and he went batshit crazy, tried to commit suicide, stalked me, broke into my house and stabbed my soccer ball and left it sitting on my bed with a giant knife in it. Oh, and he stole my panties and posted photos of him with them in his mouth all over MySpace. Oh, the early 2000s. I sincerely hope he winds up in prison one day, because I know he still has a habit of going for extremely young girls who are too inexperienced to know what the fuck is up. I dated a girl for a year and a half after being single for 6 years. Everything was hunky-dory, even though our second official date was Easter dinner with her family. Yikes. Should have seen it then. Until our 1-year anniversary, she was upset she didn't get the magic ring for Christmas, which she'd been pushing for. I really loved her, and did want to marry her. She started pushing for us to live together, even though neither of us were ready, nor could afford to pay the rent, utilities, and food, with our combined income. She talked of babies, living together in a town far away from my work, my family, my friends, close to her family, her job, her friends. If I wouldn't answer her texts, worked third shift, so when she was awake, I was sleeping, or just getting up, so not awake, yet, she'd flip out at me. Things finally came to a head one week. We'd had an argument about living together again, which devolved into whenever we spent time together, I'd always fall asleep in her arms. Third shift, 60 plus hours a week, really tired, and she never got to spend quality time with me, because I always fell asleep. This argument continued for 3 days, with her blowing me up at work. Finally, I realized I wasn't ever going to make her happy, no matter what. So I ended it. Cut ties, and never looked back. I found out he was soliciting underage girls. Like a record scratch, it was over. /record scratch. Freeze frame as FBI agent is in mid-tackle of her BF yup, that's me. So you're probably wondering how I got here, huh? My relationship with my ex in uni seemed really great. He loved me a lot, was super attentive. I even went on holiday with his family, and at some point I thought we'd eventually marry and start a family. Long story short, when I got busy with school, final year, and didn't see him as often, he stated getting clingy and jealous of everyone, including my female friends. I tried to break up with him probably 3 times before he accepted it. Explained how I wanted to focus on my studies and the situation wasn't good for either of us. The last time he seemed to understand my point and we remained friends. This also didn't last long, and he eventually started stalking me online and in person and constantly bothering my friends. He managed to go to my senior year party, even though he wasn't in my year. Eventually he texted me calling me a whore, that I had cheated on him, you name it. He also told this to all our mutual friends in uni, so that was fun. He acted like a total lunatic begging for me to reconsider a friendship after that, but obviously there was no chance for that. The last straw was him showing up at the graduation ceremony, making it awkward for me and all my family. We were in a long-distance relationship for over 3 years and eventually it started to fizzle. She'd tell me to move to the States and drop my college degree, my family and my animals to live as an illegal immigrant, and I could just do whatever odd jobs I could find just to be with her. I told her I needed to wait. She'd get very upset every time I went out with friends and would bombard my Facebook wall with random crap and send me private messages with passive-aggressive insults and threats of suicide. I broke it off with her and moved on, but she kept messaging me asking to be friends. I tried, but she'd randomly blow up at me, insulting me for ruining her life by making her think she could be loved. I told her she did deserve love and she'd get even more upset. We couldn't talk at all. Last year she messaged me yet again. We broke up in 2013, telling me that I had a legal obligation to marry her since I said I would 5 years ago, and therefore she expected me to just fly up there and fulfill my obligation to her. Had to block her. I started going grey in my early 30s and she started insisting I dye my hair because she didn't want people to think she was a girl with daddy issues dating an old man. Restraining order time came when she started spiking my conditioner with strawberry blonde dye. I was dating a guy. I really liked him. He was smart, funny, and adventurous. We were getting pretty serious. He pretty much lived at my house. One weekend I went home for my dad's birthday. All of my brothers were home. I have 5 of them. We ate, drank, and were merry. One of my sister-in-laws took some pictures and posted them on Facebook with me tagged in them. Got back to my house Sunday evening and my boyfriend was coming over shortly to hang out / spend the night. When he got there he was basically frothing at the mouth. He shoved me and called me a whore. Started pushing me around, ranting about how he had to see me whoring myself all over the internet and hanging on a bunch of guys. I told him they were my brothers, but at that point I was done with him. I told him to get the fuck out of my house. He took that as an invitation to throw me up against a wall and try to force me to kiss him. My roomie heard the commotion and came out of her room with a bat. Then shithead made the only good decision he made that day and decided to leave. Kicked in a pantry door and wrecked some drywall on his way out though. I threw all his stuff in a dumpster. He ended up stalking me for years. Showing up drunk at places I'd moved to after we dated. Calling after I'd changed my number. Even texted me on the week of my wedding to ask me to reconsider marrying him instead. Yeah, you crazy fuck, I want to dump the love of my life for a crazy stalker. Jesus Christ, hope that man leaves you alone. She punched me in the face while I was sleeping. Apparently my phone had woken her when I received a text in the middle of the night from a girl asking if there was any chance I could come pick her up. She assumed I was cheating and figured that the most efficient way of addressing her concerns was to just punch me in the face hard while I lay there sleeping. The text was from a non-Alabamian cousin who had some sort of semi-emergency and needed to get picked up from a party. I had an ex who went out of town for a weekend, and when she got back she came over to my apartment when I wasn't there and she found a bra that wasn't hers. When I came home my place was completely trashed. Like thousands of dollars worth of damage. And since I was in my early 20s this easily amounted to my entire life's work up to that point. We're talking TV, stereo, instruments, Sega Genesis and SNES, this was the mid-90s, and clothes. When I rightfully asked what the fuck, she accused me of cheating and having another woman over during the weekend she was out of town. I denied this and she presented her evidence and triumphantly waved the bra in my face. She seemed to really enjoy the aha moment. Hey, remember a couple of weeks ago when you told me you were going out of town for the weekend and that I should invite my kid sister to come over and take her out to that stupid underage club up the street? Yeah, I did that, you goddamn psycho. I've never seen an inflated sense of self deflate so quickly in real life like that. And I came to a harsh realization when I kicked her crazy ass to the curb. It's almost as hard explaining to your friends why you're breaking up with the super hot chick who is out of your league as it is explaining it to her. Like none of my buddies could accept that I didn't want to spend time with a crazy person who basically ruined my life in 1 2-hour fit of uncontrollable anger. She literally destroyed everything I own except for a few dishes in the cupboard. Even my food was fucked up. My food. Yeah, but she was so fucking hot. And the worst part? After we broke up I found out she was cheating on me with random dudes all the fucking time. When my live-in boyfriend of a few years blew a month's rent on weed without telling me when he was out of work and my paycheck was barely enough to cover the rent and food. When I told him he couldn't do that he went nuts and started rage screaming and smashed his car up with an axe because I need my weed, you fucking bitch. When he calmed down and disappeared with his friend to go clear his head I was browsing the web on my laptop for rehab places, clicked on some random history item and saw he had uploaded porn onto the web, of me asleep, or in the shower, without my knowledge or consent. When I confronted him by text he said he could because I was his. We broke up on the spot. It was a wild 24 hours. I'm a guy, and I've been really lucky with the girls that I dated when I was younger. But I have to say this. There are a lot of guys out there that are really good guys, and girls that are really neat girls. No matter how good you look, or how much money you make, your lack of genuine self-confidence is what most prospective people feel is a turn-off. Every relationship is a balancing act of give and take. You can never really provide for somebody else, if your own insecurity is what controls you. Learn to live without people, and stop trying to tell people how great you are. Once you no longer need them for reaffirmation they can see that in you. The best way to ensure you aren't the topic of these discussions is to learn to love yourself before you expect others to love you. See, I normally feel perfectly fine being on my own, then my friends in relationships are like, dude, you need to get a girlfriend. Well, it's not about being with a girl, it's about being with the right girl for you. We were spending a large amount of time together, with me staying at his house several nights of the week. He went mad one day because he said we weren't spending enough time together. He pulled out a notepad and drew up a schedule, outlining in excruciating detail each hour that I would spend with him throughout the week from then on. I distinctly remember sitting there, saying nothing and feeling like I was in the twilight zone. Things got significantly crazier from then on, but this moment always sticks out in my mind. Big red flag. Started dating not long after a previous relationship. At first everything was amazing and I did everything for this girl. For my 21st birthday we went to Alton Towers with two of my friends, one boy and one girl. We stayed over at the hotel. We were all in the same room having a drink and a laugh when suddenly my GF storms out the room for no reason. Rightly so, I follow her back to our room as to ask what's up. Before I can even finish my sentence she punches me square in the face, gets me to the floor and kicks me about 5/6 times. I ask why and it's because I'm apparently always looking at my girlfriend. Anyway, in the morning we set off home and I assume all is well. We drop my friends off and as I pull up to her house she puts her feet on my windscreen and kicks it 3/4 times, cracking it. Not sure why I stayed with her for a month after this, as she scratched at my face repeatedly when I accepted an old school friend on Facebook. We started dating in middle school and he was my first boyfriend, so I was head over heels, or so I thought. I constantly was told by other people that he was cheating on me with a bunch of people. I finally broke up with him after 3 years. After we broke up was when he went nuts. He broke into my house while I was at school. He then would wait outside my house on the front steps every day because he got out of class earlier than me. Then when I finally got a job he started showing up there. Once I started dating my recent boyfriend junior year of high school, he would continue to make up lies and tell my current boyfriend all these rumors. He would corner me at school and push me up against walls. Really dodged a bullet there. He still is crazy and continues to DM me on Instagram 6 years later as if I'll ever answer.